The galaxy was full of light, yet in one corner of endless space, a small sound began to move across the stars. It was not loud, not strong, but it was there, pushing through the black emptiness. At first, no one paid attention. The stars sang louder, the great ships of alien empires sent stronger signals every day. But still, the little cry moved, slow and steady, like a child lost in the dark. It was a voice without words, only a call, a strange message repeating again and again. Some thought it was only background noise, the leftover echo of some dead star. Others ignored it, too busy fighting wars or trading treasures. Yet the signal did not stop. It reached the ears of a listening station on the edge of the galaxy, a lonely outpost of a race known for hearing things no one else could. They listened closer, and what they heard made them pause. This was not a natural sound. This was not the crash of a meteor, or the hum of radiation. This was a cry. Someone, somewhere, was asking for help. The message was simple but heavy, as if it carried pain through the static. The listening race sent word to their leaders, and soon the small signal was no longer a secret. It spread from world to world, and the question spread with it: who was calling? The galaxy was wide and old. Many species had lived and died among the stars. Could this be a forgotten people, trapped on a broken world? Could it be survivors of some lost empire, hiding, waiting for rescue? Or could it be something stranger, something dangerous? Curiosity burned stronger than fear. Across the galaxy, ships turned their ears to the signal. They traced its path, they ran its numbers, and slowly, with every calculation, they came to the same answer. The source was far, at the very edge of the galaxy, a small blue planet turning around an ordinary yellow sun. The Council of the Great Species met in their high chamber. There were hundreds of voices, each one speaking with pride and power, each one claiming to know what must be done. Some spoke with kindness. They said the signal must be answered, because life was rare and precious, and to leave a voice crying in the dark was an act of cruelty. Others spoke with caution. They said the galaxy was full of tricks, and some voices called for help only to lead others into traps. A few even laughed, asking why the strong should waste their time on the weak. Yet even the laughter could not stop the pull of the message. Something about it was too human, too raw. It sounded like fear, like hope, like the last chance of someone ready to die. In the end, they agreed. They would answer. They would send ships. They would find the source of the cry and learn the truth. Far away, the signal kept moving. It passed through clouds of dust, through broken moons, through the deep cold between suns. Each time it played, the same words, the same desperate tone, like a heartbeat in the dark. Out there, beyond the Council's wisdom and beyond the ships of the great empires, the planet waited. Oceans rolled. Mountains stood tall. And on its surface, eyes looked to the sky, waiting for the reply they knew would come. Humanity had sent their voice into the void, not knowing who would listen, not knowing what it might bring. But one thing was certain: someone had heard, and soon the galaxy would come knocking. For the alien empires, it was a chance to show mercy, a chance to prove their greatness. They thought they were the rescuers, the saviors, the strong lifting up the weak. They did not know the story had already begun to move in another direction. In the shadows of Earth, deep in hidden places, men and women already whispered about the future. The cry was never only a call for help. It was also an invitation. It was bait. The stars were about to answer, and when they did, the galaxy itself would change forever. The council chamber was vast, a place built from crystal and steel, where the voices of 100 worlds came together. Light drifted from the ceiling like rivers of fire, and shadows stretched across the long floor where delegates stood in silence before the meeting began. Each seat was filled by a ruler, a general, a leader chosen to speak for an empire, and their eyes glowed with the weight of power. The signal was playing in the chamber, over and over again, a thin cry that filled the air with unease. No one could deny what it was. It was a voice asking for help. Yet no one could agree on what it meant. The first speaker was a tall being of silver skin and 4 arms, known as Zython. His voice was sharp like breaking glass. He told the others that the weak deserved no place among the stars. If this planet had fallen, if its people were lost, then it was their fate. To save them would only create mouths to feed and more chaos in the galaxy. Across the chamber, another figure rose. She was from the Myral, a species with soft wings and gentle eyes. She spoke with passion, her words ringing with compassion. She argued that every voice mattered, that to ignore a cry in the dark was to forget their own history. Long ago, even the strongest empires had once been small. If others had not reached out, they would never have survived. Many nodded at her words, yet others shook their heads. Then came the deep growl of Kroth, a warlord from the edge of the galaxy. His people had seen tricks before. He told of pirates who sent false signals to lure ships, of machines that copied voices to trap fleets. He warned that this cry could be the same. Better to burn the source than risk danger. The chamber filled with argument, voices rising like storms, some filled with pity, some with greed, some with fear. Hours passed, and still no decision came. But through it all the signal kept playing, a soft whisper under the noise of debate, reminding them all that somewhere out there, someone was waiting. At last the high speaker rose, a being older than any other in the room. Her body was thin as bone, her eyes two small fires that had seen centuries of rise and fall. She raised her hand, and the chamber grew quiet. In her voice there was no anger, only a cold memory. Long ago, she said, she had heard a signal just like this one. A small cry, weak and soft. They had answered it. They had given help. And when the truth was revealed, it had cost her people more than she could ever speak. The chamber trembled with silence, her words sinking into every heart. Still, she did not command them. She only warned them. The choice was theirs. Debate began again, but slower now, touched with unease. Some whispered of the ancient warning, others dismissed it as the paranoia of the old. Finally, a vote was called. One by one, hands and claws and wings were raised. The result was clear. They would answer. They would send aid. They would prove the galaxy was not heartless. Yet beneath the relief and pride, fear remained. The high speaker did not smile. She only whispered to herself, too low for others to hear, that the galaxy would regret this choice. And so plans were made. A fleet would be sent, carrying gifts of knowledge and healing. Envoys would travel, ready to greet the lost children of the blue planet. In the great chamber, the signal played for the last time that day, echoing against the walls before fading into silence. The decision was made. The stars had chosen to answer. Far away, on the edge of the galaxy, Earth waited. The day the alien fleet reached Earth, the skies changed forever. First came the shadows, great ships sliding through the upper atmosphere like silent mountains of metal. Then came the light, beams of silver and blue spilling across the clouds as engines slowed and voices echoed in strange frequencies. People looked up from cities, from villages, from ships on the seas, and for a moment all fear and war between nations stopped. Every screen, every camera turned toward the heavens, capturing the first true proof that humanity was not alone. The governments of Earth rushed to respond, but their plans had already been broken, for the visitors did not come to one leader or one country, they came to the world. Their ships hung above the oceans and deserts, above crowded skylines and empty plains, a show of power so great that no missile or army could ever challenge it. Yet the voice that followed was not a threat. It was calm, almost warm, a message translated into hundreds of human languages at once. It spoke of peace, of friendship, of help. The galaxy had heard humanity's cry, and now the galaxy had come to answer. In the streets people cried with joy, others fell to their knees, and still others watched in silence, unsure if this was salvation or invasion. The first meeting took place in a neutral zone, a plain far from any city where both sides agreed to gather. From the sky descended a ship like a black mirror, taller than the tallest tower, its sides glowing with lines of living light. A ramp lowered and figures stepped forward, their bodies unlike anything the human eye had ever seen. Some were tall and shining, some small and covered with feathers, others wrapped in shadows of shifting skin. Yet they walked together, united by the Council's command, and they bowed with a strange kind of respect. Humanity sent its own representatives, men and women in simple suits, faces pale but voices steady. Cameras caught every second, broadcasting across the planet as the first words passed between two species. The aliens offered gifts, small devices that healed wounds, tools that produced energy without fire or smoke, food that never spoiled. They gave these freely, as proof of their intent. They said they wished only to share knowledge and lift up a younger race into the family of stars. The humans accepted with gratitude, smiles wide, voices soft with thanks. The world cheered as hope filled the air, and for a moment it seemed the cry had been answered with kindness. But beneath the smiles something else stirred. In hidden rooms far below the surface, human leaders whispered to each other. They spoke not only of the gifts but of the power behind them. They asked how a machine could heal in seconds, how energy could be pulled from empty air, how ships could cross light years in days. They did not see only kindness. They saw opportunity. To the public they spoke of peace and friendship, yet behind locked doors they studied the alien gifts with hungry eyes. Soldiers stood ready, scientists worked day and night, engineers tore apart every fragment they could touch. The aliens did not notice at first. They believed what they wanted to believe, that humanity was humble, that humanity was grateful, that humanity was weak. They mistook quick learning for innocence, clever questions for curiosity, and smiles for trust. They did not see the fire that burned in human eyes whenever a new piece of knowledge was revealed. They did not hear the words whispered in secret rooms, that this was the moment they had waited for, that the galaxy itself had come to their doorstep, and that they would never again be small. As the first days of contact passed, Earth became a place of wonder. Alien ships floated above cities like guardians, their shadows falling across old monuments and new towers. Children waved at them from rooftops, and many believed the future would be brighter than ever. But deep in the heart of humanity a different future was already being built, one the galaxy was not ready to face. The cry for help had been answered, yet the true story was only beginning. The gifts kept coming, and with every passing day humanity changed. The aliens brought machines that cured sickness in minutes, medicines that erased pain from the body, and tools that could grow food in deserts where nothing had lived before. They showed how to build reactors that gave endless energy without smoke or poison, and they offered small crystals that stored more power than entire cities once consumed. They shared maps of the stars, routes through the dark, secrets of travel faster than light. They taught in great halls, standing beside human scientists and engineers, speaking slowly, carefully, believing that such complex things would take centuries to master. But they were wrong. Humanity listened with sharp ears and remembered with sharp minds. Lessons that were expected to take years were understood in weeks, and machines meant only to be copied in parts were soon rebuilt in full. The aliens praised their students, calling them quick, calling them clever, but in their private talks some of them wondered how it was possible. No other race had ever adapted so fast, no other young species had absorbed the galaxy's wisdom with such hunger. At first the doubts were small, like whispers in the dark, but the whispers grew louder. In the alien fleets some began to say that humans were not simply learning, they were consuming, pulling in every fragment of knowledge as if they had been waiting for it. They said that the cry for help had not been weakness, it had been a door, and the galaxy had walked through without hesitation. On Earth the changes were impossible to hide. Factories that once burned coal now glowed with alien light, streets that were once dark now shone brighter than the sun, diseases that had haunted families for generations vanished in days. The people cheered, but in their joy there was also ambition. Soldiers tested weapons built with alien energy, engineers constructed engines that could lift ships higher and faster than ever before, and leaders spoke of unity not for peace but for strength. Nations that had once fought against each other now joined hands, not out of love, but because together they could hold more power. The aliens watched this unity with pride, believing it was their gift that had ended human conflict, never guessing that it was something deeper, something far older inside humanity itself. In the shadows, secret projects grew. Laboratories hidden beneath mountains cracked open the secrets of alien crystals. Shipyards along the coasts built new vessels that looked human but carried alien hearts. Weapons were tested in silence, far from the eyes of those who had given the knowledge. The humans smiled at their guests, bowed politely, and thanked them for every lesson, while in silence they built plans for a future that did not include kneeling to anyone. The aliens thought themselves teachers, guides, the elder race lifting the younger from the dirt. But the humans were not children, and they did not intend to remain students. In meetings, human scientists began to ask sharper questions, not about the past but about weapons, not about survival but about conquest. They asked how shields worked against plasma, how fleets moved in war, how empires defended their borders. The aliens answered carefully, some avoiding the truth, others giving half-knowledge, but it was already too late. Even fragments were enough. Humanity did not need centuries. They needed only the door, and the door had been opened wide. Still, the galaxy believed it was safe. They believed the humans were grateful, harmless, a species saved from despair. They did not see the sparks behind human smiles, the way their eyes narrowed with calculation, the way their hands built faster than they were taught. They did not see that humanity had already moved past being saved. They had begun preparing to lead. And somewhere in the great halls of Earth, where humans met in secret, one voice finally spoke the thought that lived in all their hearts. The galaxy had answered their cry for help, but soon the galaxy itself would be the one crying. Long before the alien fleets had arrived, long before the cry had crossed the dark, humanity had already planned its move. The message that traveled across the stars had not been born from weakness but from strategy, a voice crafted to sound fragile, desperate, and small. In hidden bunkers buried beneath mountains, leaders and scientists had debated for years how to call the galaxy without showing their true hand. They knew the universe was old, that life beyond Earth must exist, and they knew that sooner or later the stars would listen. But humanity did not wish to wait centuries to climb the ladder of power. They wanted the knowledge now, the weapons now, the future now. And so the cry was made, a careful lure, a signal built to trigger the pity of those who heard it. It worked. The aliens came with open arms, their hearts filled with mercy, never guessing that they had walked straight into a trap. At first the humans acted as expected. They bowed, they smiled, they thanked their rescuers with humble words. They played the role of children meeting parents, of students meeting teachers. But behind the curtain, the truth was very different. Every gift was stolen and remade, every lesson was twisted and expanded, every weakness of the galaxy was recorded in secret books. When the aliens taught them how to heal, they asked how to harm. When they spoke of shields, humans asked about what could break them. When they revealed star maps, humans marked not only the safe routes but also the borders of alien empires, studying their defenses like hunters studying prey. In the beginning, the galaxy did not notice. They were blinded by their own pride, believing they were saviors. But slowly strange events began to happen. A ship that had shared its knowledge with human engineers suddenly vanished on its return path. Another fleet reported that its technology, once shared, was being used in ways never taught. Rumors spread, whispers grew, and some began to ask if perhaps the humans had never been desperate at all. The council dismissed such fears. They said humanity was only ambitious, only eager to rise, and that was no crime. But there were a few who remembered the warning of the High Speaker, the voice that had told them long ago that this decision would bring regret. They began to watch more closely, and what they saw chilled them. On Earth, hidden bases were building ships faster than expected. Weapons never shown to the aliens were tested in silence, their fire lighting up the night skies of deserts where no eye could see. Soldiers trained not with old rifles but with new energy blades and plasma cannons, tools only given weeks before by their alien guests. And in the shadows, human leaders spoke of the future, not with fear but with hunger. They did not see the galaxy as saviors. They saw them as resources. They did not see allies. They saw prey. The missing fleet was only the beginning. More ships began to fall silent, their last transmissions filled with confusion before vanishing into nothing. Some said pirates, others said accidents, but in the darkest halls of the council a whisper grew that the humans were testing their new power. Still the official story remained unchanged. The cry had been answered, Earth was being saved. But the truth was spreading like fire in dry grass, and the galaxy was beginning to feel the heat. Humanity had played its role well, but masks cannot stay forever. Soon the truth would be too large to hide, and when it came into the open, the galaxy would realize that it had not rescued a lost child. It had armed a predator. The galaxy had given too much and realized it too late. What began as lessons of peace became blueprints of war, and the humans used every gift not as a shield but as a weapon. At first the signs were small. A patrol ship found its own designs mirrored in human fleets, a scout vessel vanished after sending a brief call of alarm, a trading convoy reported that weapons once held only by advanced empires were now in the hands of soldiers who had walked Earth's soil. Still the Council chose denial, unwilling to admit their mistake, unwilling to believe that mercy had bred a threat. But denial could not stop reality. The first open strike came without warning, swift and merciless. A human-built fleet, shining with alien engines and armed with weapons they had once been taught to fear, appeared at the border of a minor alien empire. They did not ask for trade, they did not beg for help. They demanded surrender. When surrender was refused, the skies turned red with fire. The alien fleets that stood in their way fought bravely but fell one by one, their own weapons mirrored and improved in the hands of humanity. Within weeks the empire was broken, its stations seized, its people forced to kneel before a race once thought weak and desperate. News spread like a storm through the stars. Humanity was no longer the student, no longer the child. They were conquerors. The council called emergency meetings, voices shaking with fear, but even as they argued more reports arrived. Colonies burned. Outposts fell silent. Trade routes were cut off by ships that bore human banners. The galaxy that had once pitted Earth now trembled at the name of its people. And yet the humans did not stop. They moved with a hunger no other race could match, each victory fueling the next, each new weapon captured and turned against its former masters. The aliens began to realize the cruel truth. They had armed their own enemy, they had fed the fire that now consumed them. Some tried to form alliances, gathering fleets to stand against the human tide, but unity came too late. The humans had studied not only technology but also strategy, learning how empires rose and fell, how alliances cracked under pressure, how fear divided even the strongest of bonds. They struck where their enemies were weakest, cut supply lines, turned allies against each other with promises of survival. And in every battle they grew stronger, not weaker, for each loss of the galaxy was a gain for Earth. In the eyes of humanity, this was not cruelty, it was destiny. They told themselves the galaxy had ruled long enough, that the old empires had grown fat and lazy, that it was time for a new order. Their leaders spoke to their people, declaring that Earth had been ignored and forgotten for too long, and now the stars themselves would belong to them. The humans believed, for they had tasted power, and there was no turning back. Across the galaxy fear turned into regret. Species that once called themselves saviors whispered now of survival, asking how to escape the storm they had unleashed. But escape was impossible, for humanity was everywhere, their fleets spreading like fire across dry fields, burning all that stood in their way. The rise was complete, and the galaxy could only watch as the children they thought they had saved became their masters. And in the silence that followed every battle, as alien survivors bowed their heads in defeat, they remembered the warning that had been given in the council chamber, "You will regret it." Now they understood, for the regret was written in every flame, in every scream, in every world that fell beneath the iron hand of Earth. Humanity had risen, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy was silent now, a silence not born from peace but from fear, the kind of silence that follows after screams are finished and only ashes remain. Worlds that once glittered with the pride of empires now lay under the shadow of human banners, their skies patrolled by ships built with alien steel but carrying human hearts. The survivors gathered in secret places, broken rulers of fallen nations whispering of mistakes they could never undo, their voices shaking as they remembered the moment when the signal was first heard, the fragile cry that had called them across the stars. They thought they had been merciful, they thought they had been wise, but in truth they had been blind. Humanity had never been weak, never been helpless, they had only been waiting, patient hunters behind soft words, and the galaxy had delivered itself into their hands. In ruined chambers of the council, the few who remained argued with trembling voices about what to do. But every plan ended the same way, in silence, for they all knew no fleet was left strong enough to stand against Earth. The humans had not only taken their weapons, they had taken their will, crushing it under victories so complete that resistance itself felt like madness. Some species surrendered without a fight, kneeling the moment human ships appeared above their worlds, hoping mercy would spare them, but mercy was a word humans no longer spoke. To them mercy was weakness, and weakness was something they had sworn to erase. Yet it was not only conquest that filled the survivors with dread. It was the message. For after the wars were won, after the last embers of defiance were stamped out, humanity sent a new signal into the void. It was not a cry for help, not a desperate plea, but a warning carved in fire and steel. It told of their rise, of the galaxy they now ruled, of the fate of those who had answered their first call. And at the end of the signal came words that made even the strongest tremble. We were the ones who called, and we are coming. It was not sent to the defeated, for the defeated already knew their place. It was sent outward, beyond the rim of the galaxy, into the deep unknown where other voices might one day listen. Humanity was no longer asking for help. They were announcing their arrival. And in the shadows of broken worlds the survivors wept, for they understood that the nightmare would not end here, that somewhere beyond their stars another people might one day hear that message and make the same mistake. The regret spread through every survivor's heart like a disease, heavy and endless, for the truth was now clear and undeniable. The galaxy had answered humanity's cry, and in doing so they had written their own doom. The fire of Earth burned too bright to be stopped, and the stars themselves seemed smaller under its light. The old empires were gone, the council was gone, and in their place stood a single power, born from a world once ignored. Humanity looked out at the endless dark not with fear but with hunger, ready to move beyond, ready to claim what still waited. And as the last survivors hid in silence, they prayed that no one else would ever hear that new signal, prayed that no one else would ever repeat their mistake. But prayers are only whispers, and whispers cannot stop destiny. The galaxy would regret its choice forever, for the children they thought they had saved had become the masters of all, and there would be no dawn after this night.